well, we support the British people by giving them a virus, kind of. But trying to give them something that's very simple to use, and I don't really know what distribution they might use in
It
this case.
it does have a very good underlying message, though. I think we can both agree that the internet is something in most cases is a very good thing. It's certainly good to be part of the community that's provided on the internet. And now it's been obviously looked at that these 9.2 million people allegedly that don't have connection in the home, and Linux is a way for them to be included into that. So I certainly think from that perspective, it's a very good message that whoever's...
How are one of the things that happened with OLPC when you actually try to specify the goal of bringing computers to the less developed world. At the time, I'm not sure if it's just being sensational or being inaccurate, or maybe just trying to make some good headlines or something like that. But with Nigerian kids, for example, when they had the OLPC, there were several reports of the kids just going to porn sites and not exactly using the computers for education. And there is always this concern that people will just get the internet and not actually use it in the way intended by the government, or maybe not be as productive in all sorts of ways, maybe be addicted to certain websites. And I've read some statistics on how people use the net. And this was actually an American type statistics. So they learn how people in the States are hooked on the computer since they wake up, things like that. So I think from experience, and I'm very cynical about it, usually when the government talks about getting people connected to the web, it's just one of those kind of fairy tale type of nice stories about how you care about, kids and families, kids who go back to school and have no computers, and they use all kinds of terms like broadband or Google, things to recognize, but they don't actually understand computers because, of course, most politicians come from things like being lawyers and things. I'm very, like I say, just be very careful. I'm very cynical about it. But I just see lots of politicians who don't really know how to use computers. And in the case of Tony Blair, he would kind of be escorted by Bill Gates when he was talking about computers. Like, this was kind of like the brain person. He was the politician. And he would take advice from these people. And now I see the same thing with the existing government. They talk to companies like Google. They take advice from Google on things like patents and, or as they call it, intellectual property. And it kind of, they seem to be a little misguided, in my opinion, on certain issues, and they try to pick the big names or the brands, or pick all kinds of sound bites and nice stories to sell to people in order to ensure people are voting for them again. So if they say something like, well, we try to promote education by offering this low cost thing to, for families to connect the kids to the internet so that they can get education, see them use Wikipedia. My experience from my friends and things, their kids will usually want to just play, gory games and things like that. I had this conversation before. I basically said, put them on the internet, have them read. But then they give me the example of the kid who's like 10 years old. Hey, the person would never use the internet in any way as you might want or expect. They just see some game and then they spend their entire afternoon just playing the game. So you turn the kids into some kind of gamers or
I mean, I think it's sort of face value, and you make a very good point, Roy. I mean, this could well end up like the PC for pensioners, being rather insulting and rather patronising. I'm not sure how it'd be marketed to people. Would this be classed as a PC for low-income families? That's not really a badge I would like to have if I was in that position to get one of these PCs. So it would have to be marketed very sympathetically, or in a way that wouldn't be insulting to people, and hopefully they would learn from the mistakes of that previous attempt with the old age pensioners and getting them online. I mean, there's not really much else to say at the moment. I think the sentiment behind it, though, is good, because at the very least, if this doesn't go anywhere, we've now got a government initiative acknowledging Linux and open source software, which is at least one step forward. Usually when we see initiatives from the government in any sort of facet of IT, it usually ends in tears, and we have to go no further than the digital economy bill to see how a couple of good ideas in theory on paper are completely unworkable when you sit and think about them for a while. So hopefully this is a good sign that at least the government are starting to acknowledge alternatives to Microsoft, and maybe this is somewhere we can move on from.
Microsoft deals, actually, except for in the United States, there was a lot of noise about the Department of I think it's the Department of Agriculture, or it might have a different name for it, but they're responsible for things like farming or trying to, I don't know, do things with the climate or trying to ensure they have all the right crops. And they moved to, I think it was something to do with the Azure cloud of Microsoft. They signed some big deal, with something like 25,000 seats, I think, maybe 4,000, and it's the same in the UK. But one of the things that happened more recently, which I made a joke about, is that they signed a deal for the Underground to be based in some way on Windows. I think that was the actual correspondence. I think they had 3 deals that I could see. Some of them to do with putting the data on Microsoft servers, public data on Microsoft servers, and promoting the whatever they call the Azure cloud. I call it Azure to kind of try to associate it with Azure, but it's an atrocious thing. Even the manager, the person who was on top of these things, I think, as far as I know, that was Ozzy. He left the company just a few months ago and moved his site to Linux and all kinds of very funny things. So here they are, still making deals with Microsoft, while at the same time claiming to considering things with Google. I don't really know of anything they did with Google so far, so I would be very cautious before thinking they do anything with Linux, even because it's Linux or because it's free software. They don't even mention the words open source. Nobody in the coalition ever mentions open source. Maybe they mention open source meaning things like, we should be like an open source government. We should be more transparent or allow people to get open data and things like that.
Well, we'll see how that one develops. Certainly, I'm hoping that it is a signal for better things for Linux, more distribution on the desktop. And if this is one of the means, then I wish it the best of luck. Staying with the television or media, so to speak, this is just one throwing in here for a very quick discussion about. Did you manage to catch the Click? BBC Click show?
I saw your comment about it. Actually, I passed it forward today. It was something about...
Basically, what it was Steve Ballmer was interviewed by one of the Click presenters at the CES, and they were talking about tablets. Everybody had a little go. They showed quite a few tablets. Now, I made a comment at the time, just after seeing it, that the BBC Click team weren't that easy on Ballmer. I wouldn't have expected them to go that. I would have expected them to go quite softly on Steve Ballmer because there's all sorts of allegations.
That's a comment, though. Also,
however,
talk about comments. Why do they talk to Microsoft? I mean, they already given the platform to begin
exactly.
with. Even though they're completely negligible in the whole area, they barely have any viable tablets.
Well, I mean, the main point that was being drawn out of this interview was that he was asking about tablets, and every time Steve Ballmer produced another, what he claimed was like a tablet, it had a keyboard stuffed on the bottom of it. So the chap was saying, well, that's got a keyboard, that's not a tablet. And then Steve was trying to demonstrate how Windows on a tablet can work with a touch screen. Well, of course, a comment made by the Click team was that the icons are too small and it's not suitable. Now, at first, I was actually quite pleased with that interview. I've been very critical of Click and what I perceive to be their pro-Microsoft bias. And I was quite actually pleased with the way they challenged him until somebody suggested to me how much time Microsoft got with their products. And then I thought about it and I watched the episode again, and it was spot on. It was exactly right. The time that they gave to Microsoft to show this whole diverse range of products that they had, and diverse as in inverted commas, was far greater than any of the other products that were on display at the CES, and which made me sort of want to retract that statement very slightly. What I did notice, and again, I'll make this very clear, this is my own personal observation, and it's a view that I've come to from watching the clip a few times, was if you watch the BBC Click episode, you'll see that at the very beginning of the interview, Steve Ballmer, his arms are wide open, he's very friendly, he's quite forward. But as the subject starts getting towards tablets and the keyboard and how Windows isn't suitable for the for a tablet platform, you'll notice that he draws his hands towards his stomach.
Yeah, or behind his head. He usually
Yeah.
does that. That's a very, and he's very telling when he's doing that.
Yeah.
Or he starts to get very, he tries to distract you.